Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Between the Ropes TV. Guys, we've got a massive card to talk about today. Of course, I'm talking about a big fight coming up at this weekend. Buatsi versus Richards, and this is not only just a good fight in itself, the whole card is fantastic. But guys, before I jump into the video today, as always, please help me out. Hit that like button and also subscribe to the channel as well. Got 4 fights I want to speak through this preview today, but we are going to spend the majority of the time on the main event, and that's where we're going to kick off things. Buatsi taking on Richards in what's going to be a really good light heavyweight fight. Now, of course, the light heavyweight division is one that's really started to grow over the last few years. You know, more and more names coming into that division. It's becoming much more competitive, and I think everyone's been waiting a little bit for this fight. It's a great British fight between these two fighters, and you know, it's one which I'm personally really looking forward to at the weekend. Of course, for those that maybe don't know, Buatsi coming into this undefeated. He's actually gone 15 wins, 13 of those coming by KO. Sorry, forgot my stat for a second then. And Richards obviously coming into this with much more fight, 2 losses to his name, but people would argue that they've been against much more seasoned pros. Of course, one of the 2 losses coming against Bivol. I don't need to say much more. The man that, you know, gave Canelo only his 2nd loss of his career. The other one, of course, being Floyd Mayweather. So for Richard, you know, he's stepped onto that world stage before. And what's interesting about these 2 fighters is people are really starting to tout both of these to make a return. Well, in Richard's case, a return to world level, and Buatsi to get that world title shot himself. Both fighters believe that they're back within, they're within a shout of going for the world titles. I both believe they're good enough to do so. And I think a win here for either fighter could really push that kind of claim further and further on. Of course, as I touched on, this is going to be a big British clash, though. When you look at the light heavyweights, in terms of England, it's 2nd versus 4th. And in terms of the world, in light heavyweight rankings, according to BoxRec, of course, it is 8th versus 12th. So this is a really good competitive fight. And, you know, Buatsi going into this a firm favourite, actually. Richards, the bookies are making him, you know, the one that's the underdog almost. But I think that's a little bit deceiving. Now, I don't want to take anything away from Buatsi because he's looked really impressive in all of his fights. I think the record speaks for itself. 15 victories, 15 victories, 13 of those coming by way of knockout. Just shows what a lethal fighter he is at light heavyweight, of course. But, you know, I don't want to take anything away from him, but I think Richards has fought much better opponents. I really do. I think he's, you know, okay, he's got 2 losses to his name. Okay, he hasn't quite got that percentage knockout ratio that obviously Buatsi has got, but he has fought better opponents, more accredited opponents. And that's something he touched on himself in the gloves are off, or I guess the Matchroom version of that. You know, he did touch on the fact that when these 2 fighters met, that, okay, yeah, you're unbeaten, but I'm the one that's gone out there, done it against the more seasonal pros. I'm not sure your record's actually saying that yet. But of course, Buatsi, you know, he's reaching those levels. This fight in itself is showing he's reaching those levels and ready for a big magnitude fight, in my opinion. And you can't question obviously his career as an amateur, of course, a bronze medalist at the Olympic Games as well. And he's gone on to do great things since turning as a pro. But of course, when you look at Richards, you know, 17 wins to his name, 10 of those coming by way of knockout. And the fights he's had, he's probably a bit more seasonal in terms of experience when it comes to the professional game. But of course, I think it's going to be a really good fight. This, I think it could honestly go either way. I think it's going to be a really good back and forth. I think Buatsi may be going for the knockout. I think you could see when you look at his resume that he will, you know, historically he will be looking to go for the knockout. Maybe Richards feels that he could get through this and win on points. It's something that he's done much more than Buatsi, for example, and it does. You know, when you do look at the 2 records as well, you perhaps maybe feel, and just through watching them, Buatsi's more of the power fighter than perhaps, but still that shouldn't be underestimated. So, I mean, I'm going to have to make a prediction on this, but I think it's one of two ways. I think it either goes Buatsi gets the knockout, or I do fancy Richards on points. And I think I'm going to throw a bit of a spanner in the works in a way. I think I'm going to back the man who isn't the favourites, and I'm going to go Richards on points. I think he'll pull off a bit of a shock with some of those that obviously are heavy in Buatsi's corner. But I do have to say this one could be really close, and I could honestly see it go in either way. But that is just my prediction. Let me know your prediction in the comments as well. But of course, we haven't finished there, guys, because this is a very packed card in itself. And we're going to cover 3 other fights that are coming up in this fight card that I think people will be really interested in. And we first start off with, obviously, Chantelle Cameron taking on Bustos, I believe is how you pronounce her name. Might be completely wrong. But Chantelle Cameron, you know, I feel this is a super lightweight title. The titles are on the line, aren't they, basically? This is a title fight. But I do think this is one that she's going to get through. And I think she'll get through it quite comfortably against her challenger. Obviously, Chantelle Cameron has 8 KOs, 15 wins. She's a credit to the sport, really. And one interesting thing that she's been pushing for this week is she wants to be one of the first females, or the first female to push a 3-minute round. Of course, we saw how good the 2-minute rounds were in, of course, the Katie Taylor fight, Serrano Taylor, how good those 2 rounds were, very compact. But people do often ask the question, well, why can't the women fight 3-minute rounds? I've spoke to other female boxers that we've had on interviewing on this channel before, and they kind of echo that as well. She's not alone, Chantelle Cameron, in saying that they do want 3-minute rounds. You know, they want to prove that they could do it like the men can do it. And I really back that. I really do think, you know, maybe it would take away the intensity a little bit, but I do think it's something that maybe the boxing lawmakers as such should look to bring something to light. But when it comes to this fight against her opponent, I think it's going to be a difficult test, but I really do back her to have a successful title defense, and then obviously maybe move on to a big fight in the rest of 2022. Another man that people are going to be wanting to talk about, Babic. Now, look, this is a bantamweight fight. Of course, it's going to be one that's a bit more of a test for him. He comes up against Adam Bulski, who's not got, you know, he's only got 1 loss to his name, which when you compare that to maybe some of other Babic's opponents, it's a better ratio than what he's typically used to. The problem I have with this is when you look at the kind of people that he's took on, Bulski, no offense to him, but, you know, they're not the caliber of fighter that, you know, I just feel it's a bit of a padded record is where I'm trying to get to with this. But, you know, everyone's talking about Babic. So, you know, I think people like him more to his personality out the ring from what he's offered in the ring. But maybe that's just me. I've not been too impressed with what I've seen so far. I think he's quite a clumsy-looking boxer. And I do think as he climbs up these better opponents that he's eventually going to come unstuck and found out. But maybe people accept that. Maybe people adhere to his character. He's obviously a good character outside the ring. And I think maybe people do expect him to lose a few, but, you know, a bit like a Chisora, he's going to be an entertaining character. He's going to be someone that come fight week, people are going to want to see whether it's a win, draw, or a loss for him. Coming up in this fight, as I said, his opponent, Adam Bulski, he's a respectable opponent. It's a definite step up, but I do once again think that Babic will get over this. I feel it's a bit of a padded record, as I said, for Bulski. I think it will be one where Babic will continue his 100% knockout win. He'll win this by way of knockout, and that will take it to 11 wins, 11 knockouts. And let's hope that he, you know, we see him in with some better opponents throughout the rest of 2022, and he isn't safeguarded a bit too much. Now, the last fight I want to come on to, and this is a big step up actually for obviously Ellie Scotney coming into this. We're massive fans of her on this channel at the moment. 4 professional fights, unbeaten. She's looking a real impressive talent. And she comes up against, obviously, a name which you guys might know well, Selena Roman, who, of course, was the fighter which took on Ebony Bridges. Obviously, everyone kind of knows Ebony Bridges in her title fight, of course, coming off the back of a loss to her. But this is a big test for Ellie Scotney. As I say, it's only her 5th fight. It's a formidable opponent. Yes, she's got, I believe it's 6 losses to her name, but you know, you do have to say she's got a lot of wins to her name as well. I think it's a very good opponent, and I think it's a good opponent choice to test her a bit more. Let's find out a bit more about her. But once again, I've got to back her for the win. I do think Ellie Scotney will continue that unbeaten record, and it's going to be a nice test for her. It's going to be good to see her tested a bit more, and it's going to tell us a lot about how far she could go as a fighter. Personally, I do feel she could go, you know, very high up in female boxing for sure. Guys, let me know your thoughts in terms of the whole of the preview. Have I made any wrong predictions? Let me know your thoughts of who's going to win the main event and all the rest of the card. And as I said at the start of the video, make sure to hit that like button. Please do subscribe to the channel as well. And hopefully I'll see you on another video. Goodbye.